Welcome back to the channel of Truth, Trust, and Transparency, where I tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. First and foremost, if you're new, this is the first video of mine that you're watching. I've been posting every day for about 160 days straight on YouTube to try to get to 2,500 subscribers. I'm trying to do that by the end of the year, and this is how many we have to go. 502. We've got a little bit over 30 days left, which if I do my maths, about 3,500. I've got to hit about 15 subs a day, guys, so it's going to be pretty tight, but stay tuned and see. Let me know what I need to do. If you haven't subbed yet and I need to do something for you, answer a question, let me know. But today is a bit of a long one. Very interesting portfolio. Let me run you through the question. Comes in from Cole. He says, "Hey Davey, been watching and following the channel for a while now. Just looking to get some advice on what you do in my situation. I'm unsure whether to sell off / sum all of my current assets and start again or continue to hold. I am 26. I own one investment property and one PPOR. I own two businesses. Currently, my PAYG from this is $190,000 and could potentially take profits out of my secondary business at 100 grand per year. I like to keep all profits in my other business within the business to continue growing / expanding. I currently have 30 to 40 grand in savings and 105K in an offset, which came from an equity release against my PPOR. Investment one, valuation. Now, this was bought in 2023. Valuation, 1.5 mil, 667 loan, 625 rental income. I'll be looking at doing a light reno next year when the current tenants' contracts expire. Approximately spend 10 to 15K, creating approximately 100 grand of uplift. PPOR, South Australia. Purchase date, November 2024. Value, 1.5 to 1.7 mil. Loan is 950. My current portfolio is quite negative, mainly due to my PPOR. I feel like both properties have done significant growth and are reaching the end of the cycle. I feel like my money would be better placed in other markets. Currently, both of the homes are in my personal name, also which could become a lending problem in the future. I currently plan on purchasing a property between 720 to 780K in a trust, aiming for something neutral / positive cash flow from the start. With a granny flat already on the property, I'm leaning towards Victoria due to it being at the start of its growth cycle. Will hold the property long term. I also have 405K in my superannuation fund, which I'm looking to also invest in two investment properties between 650 to 700. Also looking to purchase in Victoria. My current plan is to sell both my PPOR and my current investment property in South Australia late 2026, so I can purchase another PPOR for approximately 1.1 mil, which I can add value to, again, similarly to what I have done with my current PPOR. If I do this, I'll own my PPOR outright and should have some cash left over / save. I then plan to renovate / add value my PPOR, which should bring it up to around 1.5, 1.6 mil. I already have an agreement to purchase this next year, and using current post-reno value, I then plan to debt recycle to acquire more investments. This is where I love your guidance, as with that amount of money, I have a few options. I was thinking about purchasing as mainly residential at around the 800K mark and leaving enough left over to then invest in either commercial or start developing. Always been a goal / passion of mine. This is the short term / goal. I'd hate to read out the long one. Jesus. Unfortunate ultimate goal is a minimum of 1 mil passive income from property. Don't need this amount, however, love aiming high. To achieve as much as possible, there is no set time period on this. Happy to play the long game, as I know that's how property works, and young enough to not have to worry about retiring anytime soon. Would love your feedback, advice on what you do in my situation, and hope you get to that 2.5K subs by the end of the year. Love your content. Please let me know if you require any additional information. I believe I've got everything you usually ask for on these videos. Holy shit. Probably one of the longest questions I've ever got. Cole and I were talking. He also, because he sent that, I think about a week and a half ago, he also purchased a second property. Now, the issue that Cole has made that we need to look at is IP2. He's purchased with equity, so he's got 760 over 760. Look, let's break a couple of things down. Now, firstly, your first comment was, I'm currently, you wanted to look to get into a granny flat play. Now, I'll be honest, granny flat plays, I don't see them working as you buying them with the granny flat on there, because when you do, you kind of pay an absolute premium to get a house and a granny flat. Someone else has done that, and then they put this intrinsic value on it so that you are buying an absolute premium. I get the yield play, but for me, granny flats work at the back half of your portfolio, after you've done the acquisition phase, after you've got all those assets. And when you can come back and put those granny flats on in cash or a majority of cash, that's where they really help with your cash flow and to help your passive income goal. Now, $1 million, next thing to address. Cole, I really appreciate you aiming high, but you need to be realistic with yourself. You need to be realistic, because are you actually going to be able to spend $1 million in a year to live your life if you have a PPI that's paid off? Again, housing, our biggest debt. You've got no mortgage. $1 million a year is so much money. Get it, we can aim high. And to be honest, I almost actually got you there just in your self-managed super fund. So that's what I want to start off with. Start off with your self-managed super fund. For whatever reason, you've done really well with your working career and your businesses. You've got $400,000 in your super fund. If you went out, again, and before I jump into it, as everyone knows, my videos aren't financial advice. People write in, ask for my opinion, ask for my 10 cents. Happy to give it to you as long as you know that this is financial advice and I'm not telling you to do anything. Here's some things to consider. If you went out today with your $400,000 super balance and you purchased two $700,000 properties in 2025, you'd be 26 years old. We let them grow for 10 years to 1.4 mil. It'd be 2035 at that stage and you'd be 36. We'll let them grow another 10 years, just purely these two assets. Again, 2.8 mil, you'd be 46, it'd be 2045. We let them double again, plus 10 years, it'd be 2055 and you'd be 56. Now, someone said that my growth rate was a little bit too over the top and a little bit too extreme. So the additional between 56 and 60, the additional 4 years I've left and assumed no growth there. So at the end of that 34-year run, right, you're going to have two properties worth $5.6 million each. You're also going to be contributing circa 300 grand in that time. That's 100 grand. It's probably going to be a lot more than that given how much this income's going to grow. But I said, look, I'm going to assume 300 grand of contributions. That means when you get out, and if we speak to an accountant, we speak to a financial planner, and we're selling these assets in a superannuation, we're selling these assets within our super when we hit an age that we don't need to pay tax potentially, you're going to have the $11.2 million tax-free from your sale, and you're going to have $300,000 worth of contributions. The mortgage is fully paid off. There's no mortgage. 11.2 million plus 300K means you're going to have $11.5 million. Now, you could live off that, or another thing you could do is you could go out and buy a commercial asset. And a commercial asset, outright, full, no mortgage, yielding about 7% at that sort of price level, because the competition's a lot less, is going to bring in $805,000 per year. 805 grand per year. Set, forget, done. You don't need absolutely anything else. 800 grand a year is phenomenal money. So that's what you can go and do. Pretty easy. That's two purchases. Leave them, set, forget. God forbid, if you're paying yourself this sort of salary now and that increases, you can make extra contributions. Potentially you can get a third purchase in there and increase that. That will get you to your $1 million per year passive income. So congratulations. That is the benefit, ladies and gentlemen, of being 26 years old with a $400,000 super balance. A lot of people that I've spoken to on this channel or that have these plans are 40 or 50 years old with that same balance. Benefit that our friend Cole here has is that he can let it run for 30 years because he doesn't need to touch it anyway, to be able to go into, boom, this big asset at the end. Now, let's talk about the rest of the portfolio. What I found fucking very interesting is you, Cole, you have $93,000 a year negatively geared portfolio. And if you're watching this thinking, holy dooly, it is holy dooly because friends of my video that have been watching first, here's the two issues that we have. Again, we have a PPOR that looks like you've put down maybe a 5% deposit for. I think you said that you bought that for $1 million. You've got $1 million. You've got $1 million PPOR. You've got a $1.6 million PPR. You put down probably 5 or 10% deposit for it. So this is going to absolutely bleed you dry. This is why I say to people, when you do buy that PPR, you'd rather delay it for those 5, 6, 7, 8 years, because at least if we sell down 1, 2, 3 assets and we come in and we do, 40, 50, 80% deposit, we could wipe this almost out. Your other issue is that obviously with this property, we have a $760,000 loan against a $760,000 value, which tells me we have 100% loan, which is why the cost is through the roof and the rent hasn't kept up. And again, 18K. Most people don't earn, Cole, 190 grand. So you can see quite quickly from 2 assets that we're stuck. So what do? My friend, you have the ability here to start paying yourself or saving some decent money. Now, what I did and what you said is that you want to sell these 2 properties. And I thought, let's work out how much money you're going to actually get if you sell them. Again, from the back and forth between you and I, established that the cost base is probably about 900 grand. We've got $1.5 million worth, or we've got $1.5 million value, which means we've had a gain of 600K. We've paid 135 grand tax and we have 465 profit from this. If we do the same on the PPR, you're living there. We have a $1.1 million cost base, value is 1.6, we make 500K. 500 plus 465 means you come out with $965,000. Now, personally, it is my opinion, not financial advice, but I just don't think you've held these for long enough. December 2024, you cannot tell me, like, when you look at a growth run that a property, when you look at a growth run, now it doesn't always look like this, but you're telling me that in this very late 2024 you bought this, where a year later, right, and you said it's at the end of the run, you've had 60% growth, apparently, if you've bought that for $1 million or 1.2. You've 1.2, maybe a little bit less. When a property goes through a growth run, this is what most BAs will miss, and you have that 20% growth run, that year of 20% growth, you still have a couple of years here where it might be above that 5%, right? You might have a year where it's, okay, it goes down to 10, then it goes down to, maybe it goes down to 8 that year, but it comes off. It doesn't just go 20% one year and then 0% the next year. It just doesn't happen. Look at your growth runs. Look at how those usually work. So my question to you is, I don't really think we have left these for long enough to marinate, especially if you look at 965. If you're going in to then purchase something the same price, I get the play with having it outright, but one thing you need to understand is $1 million, you'll pay 650 grand, you'll pay 65 grand in stamps. That means you have 900 grand. So really you're $200,000 off if you want to buy that $1.1 million asset outright. So I potentially think, and to be honest, unless you're renting this out into an IP, even with that much high of a loan, it is still going to bleed you a lot of money. So you might be onto it in terms of selling out, selling these 2, but I would say hold them a bit longer. And the other reason that I say that, right, is let's just say you've done 20, 30, 50%, right? And you were at $1.6 million. What people don't understand as well is that you then start to have and enjoy the compound clock. you have an asset that's worth $1.6 million. Now, if that does, in this year, 10%, you're going to earn 160K in growth. 160K. So it's not the end of the world. Even if we go down to 5% growth, you're still earning 80K a year in growth. You know what I mean? So I still think there's some opportunity there for you not to just sell up, especially if you've had anywhere between 400 to 600K in growth in the last 12 months. Sounds like there might still be some steam in this market. It is my opinion. I'm not sure about the location, not sure about the suburb, but it tells me if you've had 400 to 600 growth in 1 year, you're probably going to get something off the end of that. So I would potentially ride that coat trail until you know it's fully out of steam, because you're missing out an extra 160. Obviously, we've got to pay 25, 30% tax on that by the time we exit and sell. But that would sort of add you up to that $1 million mark. Now, let's have a look at the rest of it. And something I would give to someone like Cole when they have their own business. You've got one business that you turn in the money back in, perfect. You've got the other business that can pay you quite a favorable salary, is put the deposit down in cash if you can. Why not? Because if you don't, you're going to end up with more IPs like this that are going to start bleeding you cash. There's no benefit for you, because you've got such a big salary, to just be using equity and scaling. It's not even going to be quicker, because you're going to be saving so much money. You're going to be able to save so much money once you get rid of these two assets, that you're going to have the money to put down in cash. A property purchase every 12 months. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? One thing that people don't understand as well, and one thing that's probably not spoken about, is to pull equity out of this property. Not only do we need that figure to grow by 20%, that figure grows by 20%, then we're at an 80% LVR. Then the growth on top of that is what we need, and we can extract from equity. So it's like you need then 20% growth. Now that might be 1 year, and then the growth after, for it to be a substantial amount for you to bring out. Like, I don't just want it to grow in 20% and then have 10 grand worth of usable equity and that be 18 or 24 months away. You know what I mean? So that to grow 20% and then let's say another 20% to it be, very decent growth or a deposit size chunk for you to bring out, that might be 2 years away. If you're on 190 grand, it's 135 grand after tax. And if you're saving 30% of that, it's 40 grand a year. So it tells me in 2 years, you have that next deposit saved. That's probably what I would do. Talk to your accountant too, because there might be some opportunities here to pay some dividends out. Might be paying a little bit more tax. But again, we would rather, in my opinion, I would rather put that deposit down in cash rather than equity for those sorts of reasons. Otherwise, you're going to have more instances like that. Again, 20, 40, 60. That's going to be, if you have 3 of those at 20 grand negative, that's 50% of your after-tax income, which is huge. And that's on 3 IPs. We haven't even talked about the PPOR area. So what do I do next, and what am I thinking? Well, I think we ride the coattails of these ones. We get to that growth level that we're happy with. That allows you to buy the PPOR. Again, we can do the debt recycling, but I would accompany that with tax. I would accompany that with cash if it's going to residential. If it's going to commercial, different story, better yields, better numbers on those. But what I thought that you could do is you can go out. Now you can do a few things. One thing that you may want to explore also with this sort of income is rent vesting. Do you need the PPR now? I'm not sure about your current status, relationship-wise. If you're married, if you need it at 26 years old, you're probably going to change your mind a couple of times. Why don't we just move around, do a little bit of rent vesting for a few years? Because if you did, what you could do is something like this. You could go out and you could use the $1 million and put in deposits in cash for your portfolio. We can do that in a structure that's beneficial to us. Speak to your accountant, speak to your mortgage broker, but we also have the ability to pay ourselves a really nice income to get that sort of borrowing. That's what a lot of people struggle with. So if we bought a $700,000 house, again, we put down a 20% deposit. We had potentially about 45 grand worth of stamp duty and other costs. we'd be close to 200 grand, right? 200 grand in for one asset. We'd have 560 grand debt, costing us 40 grand a year total, meaning if we can get sort of a 5.5% yield, the properties will cover itself. Let's play it out. 10 years time, 1.4, 10 years time, 2.8. We work out the calculation. We have a cost base of 800 grand. We have a $2 million profit. We pay 450 grand tax, which means we come out of it with 1.55 million. Now, so if we can buy 4, this is why 4 and 5 are always the magic number. Watch what I do here. If you can buy 1, 2, 3, 4, this is the first one. We sell this down here. We get 1.55 million. You'd have 3 remaining. 1, 2, 3 remaining, right? All carbon copies there. Now what's the benefit as well? Because we've put the cash in, even if we don't get a 5% yield and we're a little bit off that, these properties are going to be 1 or 2 grand negatively geared, not 18 grand. Because if we had 18 or 20 grand, that'd be 20, 40, 60, that'd be $80,000 negative. You're almost in the same situation. So the reason I put the cash down is so I can breathe a little bit and I don't have those huge holding costs, even with your salary. The second part is, if I sell that, I got $1.55 million in profit. Let's have a look though, because the debt is only 560 grand against the last 3. 560 grand times it by 3, 1.68. What are we selling for? 1.55. So pretty much we sell 1, we can then cover the debt on these 3, pay them off fully. 3 houses, what are they renting? What are they renting at that time when they're worth sort of 2.8 mil and they're bringing in, say, 85 grand a year in rent? 85 grand a year in rent, we're minus 10K, meaning you will be bringing in $75,000 a year in rent per property. We've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3. We've got 3. That'd be bringing in 85 grand a year a rent, $85,000 per year each at a 3% yield when they are worth $2.8 million, right? 10 grand worth of expenses, meaning $75,000 per year you'd get from each of these properties after paying your council rates, tax, all that sort of stuff, right? 225,000. Now, what if we were smart and over the next 20 years, do I have that worked out somewhere on my board? No, I don't. But over the next 20 years, and our salary was around this mark, and because we've rented, we've kept costs low, and we've built a portfolio sustainably, again, we revisit the 135, and I say you can save 30% of your salary. You're saving 40 grand a year, right? Times that by the 20 years that our portfolio has grown, we come up with $800,000 in cash. Now, that could even be more given your businesses or your businesses in the profit. Divide that by 3 means for 260 grand, we could come and put a granny flat on each of those in cash in 20 years' time. What will they rent for? 30 grand a pop each. Some cost, but that is offset by depreciation, which means we bring in an extra probably 90 grand in cash for the granny flats that are on those properties. Total means the rent from the properties is 225 grand. The rent from the granny flats is 90, leaving us with 315 grand per year, 350 grand of income per year. Plus, my friend, your 805 grand, which is in your super, means I've got you to 1,120,000 income. So let's summarize that again. Easy steps is for me to go out and utilize that self-managed super fund balance. I want to potentially leverage into larger assets that are growing at that 5, 6, 10% compared to just your own money. If that's $700,000 assets, which we have more than enough for, and you did nothing, you just left them for the next 35 years, they would be worth about $5.6 million each. We can sell them in our self-managed super fund at a time where we don't need to pay any tax. I mean, government policies at the moment aside, because they'll change in the next 35 years. leaving us with 11.2 million plus some contributions. This might even be more depending on the business income, but 11.5 at 7% means we'll bring in 805K. Next thing we do is we wait till these guys grow a little bit more in cash, and we want to potentially explore that rent vesting avenue. Why? So we don't bleed 93 grand a year negative because of things like that. We ran the numbers and we said, okay, well, if we let these grow to potentially, if we let these grow, at the moment you'd have enough, but if we went out and we just bought 4 properties and we put down 200 grand cash deposits each, that would be 2, 4, 6, $800,000. We're obviously in a surplus there already. And we just held those properties for the next 20 years. They would almost essentially pay themselves off. We could sell one of them, and from the profit we get from selling one of them, we'd be able to pay the debt off on the other 3, which means by that stage, they would be bringing in about 85 grand a year in rent, 10 grand worth of expenses, $75,000. In the background, we've also been diligently saving, not too much, but about 800 grand plus maybe some leftovers from the sale. And then we go granny flat on the back of each of those, bringing in 315K per year or 805K. Now, you might even want to, this is something potentially to think about too, is you might be able to wait a little bit longer for this to grow a little bit more so that you have that deposit for a PPOR, right? Or you might want to see if you can put a 5th property in here so that you can run it through a growth cycle so that when you sell it, you can come back and add in a PPOR. But the PPOR that you're adding in is now on a 40% LVR, meaning you only have a 400 grand loan, right? 400 grand loan at 5% is going to cost you 20 grand a year. Yeah, about 20 grand a year. Take that out of this and you're still swimming with plenty of money. That's why I think you really need to consider doing that first. Now, your other alternative, what you're thinking about as well, was debt recycling out. Now, when you debt recycle out into resi, remember what you're still doing. You're still doing this. You're still getting a loan from your resi and getting a loan from the property that you're buying, and you're having a loan stacked on top of a loan, which will leave you negative AF. And you will not be able to breathe if you bought 4 properties that are costing you 20 grand each, 80 grand, when you're telling me that your income's 190, which is 135 after tax. You're about 50, you're going to be paying 20, let's do the maths, 80 grand divided by 135. You're going to be paying 60% of your income just to 4 IPs. Doesn't work. You see what I mean? This is why I'm telling you guys to do this shit. Whether you do or don't, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I don't run a buyer's agency. But if you build sustainable and that's the way to do it, boom, boom, boom. 4 properties, add on the 5th if the PPR is huge for you at the moment. But at 26, I don't really think it is. That's my breakdown, Cole. Hope you got some value from it. If you're watching this and you also got some value, would appreciate it. The sub helped me get this to 0 by the end of the year, which means I've hit my 2,500 subscriber goal. As always, I'll catch you guys tomorrow.